Story 1. So a few years ago, I was a student studying in childcare. Now, as a part of my course, I am meant to one day a week work in a private nursery. For people who don't know what a nursery is, it's basically preschool, I think, for experience. So whilst I was there for a year, I became very close with the staff members and the children that were there. During the summer, a new child was enrolled into the nursery. The little girl, we will call her Mary because her favorite song was Mary Has a Little Lamb. Now Mary is an adorable little girl who likes to jump around and give everyone hugs and kisses. A ball of fluff is what she is. Mary is a bit slightly chubby for a 3-year-old, but that's okay. No problem with a little bit of chub. But her mom thought otherwise. Her mom, whom we'll name Karen, is this tall white lady who is American who moved to our country last year. Mary didn't look anything like Karen. Mary is a black child. But that isn't a problem to us since everyone's families come in different sizes and shapes. But I had to point this out since it'll become important later. Karen was well known in the nursery for her inappropriate fashion style and for her very lovely personality. She would show up with a flush red face, a tight slim skinny dress that shows off either her cleavage and caked in excessive amounts of makeup. A lot of us thought she was always tipsy whenever she came to pick up Mary, but since she always goes around in an Uber, that's right, even if it's somewhere down her road, she'll call for an Uber. So luckily she isn't drunk driving. Now this isn't a big deal since we're used to people like her until the summer trip starts coming around the corner. It was a trip to a big theme park in my country. Everyone was buzzed, especially the staff members since this is basically a free trip for them since the nursery is paying for it. The children will be with their parents or guardians, so we didn't have to take care of them and just go wild with alcohol and the rides. On the day of the trip, Karen came along as usual in a tight dress, high heels, pungent perfume, and excessive amount of makeup. She looks like she's dressed for some sort of formal party, whilst the other parents are dressed in casual clothing, preparing themselves for war. Remember, us staff members don't have to look after the kids on this trip, and it's the parents' guardians' responsibility to do so. Before we left for our trip, Karen noticed one of the children, a beautiful toddler whom I'll name Anna with blonde pigtails and bright blue eyes. Karen walked up to her mother, whom she held hands with, and said something quite disturbing to the point Anna's mother requested us staff to help keep a distance from her. The exchange went as followed. Karen, that's a cute girl. Oh, thank you. She's our pride and joy. Karen, she has such beautiful crystal blue eyes and blonde hair. Her skin is so fair and pale. Why, yes, she is beautiful, a bit creeped out. Karen, I wish Mary looked like her. Looks at Mary. Oh, Mary is also a beautiful girl too. Karen scoffs, yeah right. If anything, I want a baby girl like yours. She looks closer at Anna and strokes her blonde hair. Anna's mother was creeped out by that and pulled Anna away from Karen before quickly heading to us for some help. With our help, we assigned Karen and Mary to sit at the very back of the bus, whilst Anna's family sat in the front to keep some distance. Once we got to the theme park, everyone was let loose and the parents' guardians were in for a treat. Whilst us staff and students went nuts on the rides and the alcohol, basically just had a blast. Until it was nearing late afternoon, we were all getting hungry, so we walked over to the food court. There we saw an unpleasant sight. Karen was drinking some beer at one of the far back tables, talking on her phone, whilst Mary was asleep in her buggy. We looked at this scene with disgust and walked over. The exchange went as follows after Karen noticed us and put down the phone. Karen, oh hello there. Me, hello Karen, enjoying the trip? Karen, oh I wish. It's been so boring, tiring. My feet ache from walking around and it's so bloody hot. She was wearing a tight black dress and tall black heels. Of course she's gonna get tired. Me, I see. Did you two enjoy any of the rides? Karen, yes. Mary enjoys the merry-go-ride more than anything. I want to note that there was no merry-go-round in the theme park. I seated myself along with 2 other staff members with Karen to get to know her and see if she was okay because I can tell she was kinda tipsy with her skin all flushed. We kept an eye out for her and just kept talking and drinking until finally things took a turn for the worst. She talked about things we couldn't believe. Karen, you know, I never wanted a child. But my husband adopted Mary from one of his African trips because according to him he felt like he had to, and he sees her as his own flesh and blood. She scoffs as she drinks more. The husband is a journalist who travels a lot. Me, that's nice of him. I'm sure Mary will grow up to be a healthy, beautiful girl. Karen scoffs again, yeah, beautiful, richite. Back in America, beautiful white girls are the most popular ones in high school and mumbles something quietly. Me pardon? Karen. Her skin is so black. I wonder, if there was a bruise, would anyone be able to see it? Me. Ooh looks at the other two staff members with worry, but they nodded as they quickly rushed over to Mary to check if she was okay and see if there were any signs of abuse, whilst I kept Karen occupied with idle talk. Luckily, Mary didn't have any signs of abuse, but since Karen was a bit tipsy and tired, one of the staff members took Karen back to the bus to rest, whilst the bus driver kept a close eye on her. We took Mary after getting a drunk consent from Karen and took her on children rides that she'll enjoy, like the elephant ride, the airplane, the baby roller coaster, and more. We still had our fun until it was time to gather back at the meeting point around the evening. We quickly informed the manager what we had heard and expressed our concern, and the manager took it into consideration. Once we got back, apparently the manager contacted Karen's husband and informed him of what had been said and how she's been treating Mary, and also to pick up Karen since she was tipsy. Not sure what the husband did after learning all of that. The very next week, Karen came into the nursery quite early, which was unusual to pick up Mary. Anna and her mother was passing by her in the hallway to go home when suddenly Karen grabbed Anna by the arm and screamed, "Karen, I want this child, give her to me." What the hell is wrong with you? Let go." All the staff members quickly rushed over to the scene to pull Karen away. Anna was crying in pain and fear with her mother grabbing her away from Karen and hugging her protectively. "Karen, I deserve a beautiful white child, give her to me. She's mine. I want a beautiful baby girl." We restrained her with 3 men holding her down. We quickly contacted the police and her husband. Everyone was informed to leave early that day, including the cleaners, especially since I was a student. I left early because of the ruckus, but some stayed back to give a witness statement. Afterwards, according to one of the staff members, Karen's husband argued like hell with Karen in the nursery's office and basically threatened to divorce her, which got Karen crying. Karen's husband took Mary with Karen basically hugging him by the leg, begging him not to leave her and that she was sorry. For a month, instead of Karen picking up Mary, it was either Mary's nanny or the husband. According to one of the nosy staff members, the husband had divorced Karen and got a restraining order against her because apparently when the husband went to visit Karen in jail, she tried to attack him for prioritizing Mary over her, and Anna's mom also sued her and got a restraining order. I'm not sure what happened to Karen afterwards, but I hope she never has children of her own. Also, Mary is being well taken care of by her loving father, who treats her like a treasure regardless of skin color, and thinks she's a beautiful baby girl. A lot of the staff members had a crush on him after this incident, lol. Edit. I forgot to add that not all white Americans are like Karen. I only included her background of being American because she kept talking about her time in America and how in high school it's only the pretty white girls that are popular and good looking. No hate towards white American peeps. Edit 2. I'm not sure if Mary was adopted before or after the father was in a relationship with Karen, but I knew that their relationship was only about 2 years and a bit. I'm pretty sure Karen was after the dad's money because he's fairly wealthy. Not upper-class wealthy, but middle-class wealthy, and she often spent his money like water and used to brag about how much money she has thanks to her husband. Story 2. Alright, so there I was, just a regular guy with a window seat on a long-haul flight. I'd packed some snacks, charged up my tablet, and was all set to enjoy a good movie. Little did I know The flight was about to turn into a roller coaster of entitlement and drama, thanks to none other than Karen. I settled into my seat, put on my headphones, and started watching this action-packed movie I've been meaning to see. Things were going great, snacks in hand, movie on point, when suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see this lady with the infamous, "I need to speak to the manager" haircut, and I swear, my heart sank. "Excuse me," she said, all huffy and puffy, "but your movie is bothering me. I can't concentrate with all this noise." I pulled off my headphones, trying to wrap my head around what she was saying. We were on a plane, and the hum of the engines was louder than my movie. But I'm a chill guy, so I decided to be reasonable. "Oh, I'm sorry if it's too loud," I apologized. "I can lower the volume or switch to a different movie if that works for you." Now, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Oh no, not with Karen. She huffed again, acting like I just insulted her entire family. "It's not just the noise," she declared, crossing her arms. "I find those action movies offensive. You should watch something more appropriate." I blinked, genuinely surprised. We're on a plane, right? Everyone's got their own preferences, but demanding I change my movie to something more appropriate? That's a bit much. I tried to reason with her. "I'm sorry, but I really want to watch something. How about I switch to a different genre? Maybe comedy or drama?" Karen squinted at me. "No, you need to turn it off. I can't believe they allow such filth on flights." At this point, I could feel the eyes of nearby passengers on us. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I took a deep breath and tried to compromise. "Look, I'll use subtitles so you won't hear a thing. Is that okay?" Karen wasn't having it. She rolled her eyes. "Subtitles won't solve the problem. Just turn it off. It's that simple." I could feel frustration building up, but I kept my cool. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep watching my movie. It's a long flight, and I want to enjoy it." Now, this is where things went from mildly annoying to completely insane. Karen, not getting her way, decided to escalate things. She stood up and started shouting, "This man is watching inappropriate content. Someone, help!" The flight attendants rushed over, looking confused and probably regretting their career choices at that moment. "What's going on here?" one of them asked. Karen pointed at me like I was a criminal mastermind. "He's watching violent and offensive material. Make him stop." I tried to explain, "I'm just watching a regular action movie with headphones on." I've offered to compromise, but she wants me to turn it off completely. The flight attendant looked at Karen, clearly unimpressed. "Ma'am, passengers are allowed to watch their own entertainment. If the noise is bothering you, we can offer you a pair of headphones." Karen wasn't having any of it. She pointed her finger at the flight attendant. "No, you need to do something about this. It's your responsibility to maintain order on this plane." At this point, the captain had come out of the cockpit, probably wondering why there was chaos on his peaceful flight. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked. Karen wasted no time. "This man is watching inappropriate material, and your crew is doing nothing about it." The captain, clearly uninterested in Karen's theatrics, turned to the flight attendants. "Is there an actual issue, or can we all go back to flying in peace?" The flight attendant explained the situation, and the captain just shook his head. "Ma'am, passengers are allowed to watch movies. If it's bothering you, we can try to find you another seat." But Karen wasn't about to give up. She pointed her finger at me again. "He needs to be punished for this. You people are letting him get away with it." Now, here's where things took a darker turn. Karen, not getting the response she wanted, decided to take matters into her own hands. She reached over, trying to grab my tablet. I instinctively pulled it away, and that's when all hell broke loose. "Give that to me. You don't deserve to have it," Karen screeched. I held on to my tablet, bewildered by the sudden violence. The flight attendants and the captain were now trying to calm Karen down, but she was like a hurricane with a "let me speak to the manager" attitude. "You can't just attack someone on a plane," I shouted, genuinely shocked at the turn of events. Karen, not listening to reason, slapped me across the face. Yeah, you read that right. Slapped me across the face. I couldn't believe it. The entire cabin gasped, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The captain, realizing this was way beyond his pay grade, radioed for security to meet the plane upon landing. The flight attendants managed to restrain Karen, who was now screaming about her rights being violated. The rest of the flight was a blur. I was in shock, the passengers were in shock, and Karen was causing a scene all the way until we touched down. As soon as the wheels hit the ground, security personnel came on board, and Karen was escorted off the plane like the unruly toddler she was. I gave a statement to the authorities, and they assured me they'd handle the situation. As we disembarked, I could see Karen being detained, still yelling about how she was the victim in all of this. In the end, Karen got what she deserved, and I got to finish my movie in peace. It's a story I'll be telling for a long time, and you bet I'll be avoiding window seats on future flights. You never know when a wild Karen might appear at 30,000 feet. Story 3. Background. So I'm a psychologist. I work with people with special needs and disabilities. I work with their behaviors and write behavioral plans for them and their staff and families so that they have structure in their lives. I am also going through chemo and radiation for cancer. I had surgery 2 years ago to have cancer removed from my left inner thigh. I walk with a cane. Cancer has come back in a number of different places, and I am now doing treatments a couple times a week. The story. So this happened almost a month ago. I drive about an hour each way for my treatments. After my treatment, I decided to stop by the grocery store to pick up items because after treatments, I normally don't feel like going out for a few days and want to lay around. So I pull into the parking lot and I see a store scooter sitting out in the lot. I decided that I'm tired and I would just use the scooter today to rest my leg and help ease the pressure. Now, I do have a handicap card and I do use it at times when I am drained from treatments. But if I'm having a good day, I try to save the spaces for others that need it more than I do. So I park and get on the scooter and head into the store. As I get into the store, there stands this monster. And when I say monster, she's, I'm guessing, 5'8" and 350 to 400 pounds. She looks right at me and says, "Thank you so much. I've been waiting on this scooter forever." I told her that I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm using this scooter as my leg is acting up, and I just got done with my radiation and chemo treatments. Karen didn't like this response. Remember, I have a cane. The cane is right between my legs in the scooter. She then starts yelling and telling me that I'm too lazy and that how dare I not give a disability person the scooter. I looked at her and said, "You seem to be walking fine," so I continue past her. Now, if anyone knows store layouts, I went in on the side of clothes, cosmetics, etc. It was closest to where I parked. I needed to pick up a few things from the food section. Karen starts to follow me, so I go to the very back of the store being followed and yelled at by this monster. I then drive down the back aisle towards the food section. This whole time she's telling me how she can't walk, that I'm a jerk for not giving her the scooter, and I'm faking my condition. I keep going and continue to ignore her. I finally got to the dairy section of the store. She's still behind me yelling and carrying on. So I grab what I need and go to the next aisle. Finally, I'm in my third aisle, and all of a sudden, I feel my left arm being pulled, and next thing I know, I'm standing right up off the scooter. I had to grab my cane as I was being forcefully removed from the scooter to keep from falling over. She was still yelling at me, and I guess my reaction was not to her approval. I grabbed her hand and twisted it behind her back, forcing her to go face first onto the floor. Now, what happens next I kinda regret, but honestly, I think this witch needed to be put in her place. You judge. I put my cane on her back while I'm still holding her arm, and I yell as loud as I can, "Listen here, you fat cow. You're not handicapped. You're fat and lazy. You just followed me through half the store. I work with people with disabilities, and not one of them acts like they deserve or are entitled to a single thing. And maybe if you didn't go to the all-you-can-eat buffet for every meal, you might actually lose some weight and would feel entitled to use what you don't actually need." What I didn't know at the time was that 2 guys working security in clothes had been following, and watching us since she started her nonsense at the front of the store. They approached us, and one of the security gentlemen asked me if he could give me a hand up. I accepted, and he helped me back onto the scooter. Karen, you would think, would start yelling, crying, and saying I assaulted her. Nope. This witch was mad and was going to rip my head off and kill me. Apparently, she has never been so insulted in her life. No one has ever treated her or disrespected her ever in that kind of manner. Apparently, as the witch was grabbing me, one of the security guards had already called the police. I don't know exactly how long after this they showed up, but I do know both of the security were standing between this monster and myself as she was out for my blood. The police showed up, asked me to stay seated, and put Karen in cuffs as they had heard her threats. The officers asked the guards what had happened, more than myself than Karen. The store manager eventually showed up and escorted one of the police officers to see the CCTV footage of this fabulous show. They came back after 15 to 20 minutes and read Karen her rights, to which I was shocked and impressed. She actually used them. Now, I was not asked if I wanted to press charges, but I am guessing the store did. I was apologized too many times by the manager and off Karen went. I grabbed a few more things and went up to check out. The manager asked for my name, address, etc. He gave me 50% off my purchase and a gift card for $250. He apologized again, and I went on my way. 2 weeks ago, I got a letter in the mail with a court date. Apparently Karen has been charged, and I have to testify about the incident in court near the end of November. Update: I went to court yesterday. Karen was charged with and found guilty of harassment, abuse, and disorderly conduct. I also have found out that this was her third offense. She has a record already for harassing and abusing seniors and people that are handicapped. She has been banned from the store for a lifetime and apparently has been banned from other stores and restaurants. They played the store video footage of the situation, from the time I came into the store to where the police arrested her. The judge had no sympathy for her as she sat in the courtroom and did not say a word. Her lawyer used her weight as an excuse for her actions, and even had the nerve to tell the court that if I was a true gentleman, I would have given her the scooter and there never would have been an issue. The judge, the prosecutor, and myself all just looked at this idiot like, what the heck? I was asked about my medical condition and explained my situation. The judge actually apologized to me for her actions. He asked me what I did for a living, and I explained I was a psychologist and behavior specialist and worked with people with special needs and disability. He then asked me if I thought Karen needed a behavior plan and counseling. I chuckled and said, I think she needs to learn how to treat people, and that people will treat her how she treats them. The judge smiled. So, Karen was sentenced to 18 months in jail and must serve all the sentences. She will have 2 years probation, and she is to start counseling in jail and will continue until the counselor sees that she is no longer a threat to people. He told her that this counseling will continue until the judge sees fit to end it. He also informed Karen that this is her one and only chance to get her act together. Karen kept glancing at me with daggers as the judge was passing sentence. I smiled at her. As the judge finished up, he asked me if I wanted to add anything as he seemed to notice her looks towards me. I politely stood up and smiled at her and said, First off, Karen, I was not the one that pressed charges. Secondly, I hope you understand that no matter how entitled you think you are, there are people in this world that have issues and health problems. Under the Disabilities Care Act, your actions created the mess you are now in because it was easier for you to harass people instead of asking or actually doing things for yourself. I then told her that I help people for a reason. My phone is on for my patients 24/7 365. I also informed her that I have no hard feelings towards her and that if she would accept my offer, that I would be willing to work with her at no cost to help her improve herself and her life. Karen gave me a huge smile and then replied with a huge "screw you." And for that, the judge sat back in his chair. He was smiling from ear to ear and asked her to stand up. The judge then told her that he changed his mind in his ruling. Karen will now be serving 36 months with no early release, 5 years probation, and will see a psychiatrist weekly until the judge finds her fit to be a member of society. He then explained that her actions towards me were a disgrace, and that for someone that put herself in this situation, she should realize when someone offers an olive branch, most people would consider taking it. But to show her disrespect and no remorse for her actions, he finds it fitting that her new sentence is more fitting for her. Story 4. Back in the summer of 1975, my two sons, aged 9 and 7, were all excited to be a part of the Cub Scouts. Like any kids, they quickly bonded with their scout friends, and I, as a dad, found myself forming friendships with the other scout dads. Most of us got along well with the other families, except for one pair, the entitled mother and her son. This entitled mother was something else, let me tell you. She seemed completely oblivious to her own son's misbehavior and appeared more interested in her own social life than in parenting. She spent her days in mommy groups and spent her husband's hard-earned money rather than being a responsible parent. Her husband, on the other hand, was a decent man but worked long hours and was often absent. Now, her 9-year-old son was a real piece of work. He had a reputation as a notorious bully in the Cub Scouts. He was overly aggressive, picking fights, swiping stuff from other kids, and showed a total lack of respect for adults. When the other parents and I tried to address this behavior, the entitled mother would unleash a barrage of excuses. He's just a boy. He's expressing himself. Your kid started it. What made it worse was that she would pacify her son's bad behavior with sweets, toys, and whatever else he wanted. This situation became so unbearable that the other parents and I decided not to invite the entitled mother and her son to any events outside of scout meetings. But this didn't sit well with her. She'd constantly call our house, asking for sleepovers or playdates with our kids, even though we had made it clear that we wanted nothing to do with her son's behavior. She'd accuse us of bullying her child by excluding him and even threatened to call the governor, claiming discrimination because she was a Baptist. Yeah, she went there. Then, one late June day, the other parents and I were discussing plans for a beach trip to Santa Cruz. We were planning to bring our families along, and as we were hashing out the details among the 10 other moms and dads, the entitled mother must have overheard us. She approached us, her son in tow. Entitled mother, can you take my son with you? I need to do something with my husband. Me, I was flabbergasted. What? Where? To Santa Cruz. No. This is a friends-only trip. You and your son are not invited. Entitled kid kicked me in the leg and yelled, "You're a big meanie," before running off. Entitled mother exclaimed, "Look what you did, child hater," then scurried after her son. With our plans set, we needed to go shopping and get everything ready for our trip. 12 adults and 18 kids required a lot of supplies. My wife and I, along with 4 other parents, were keeping an eye on the cars and keeping the kids busy. In a momentary lapse of attention, I turned to adjust the car's air conditioning because my kids were feeling hot. When I turned back, to my shock, I found the entitled boy standing there with his bag, and his mother speeding away in her station wagon. We were all stunned, asking ourselves, is this really happening to us? The boy's mother had given him a note with his allergies and an emergency phone number. We tried calling, but there was no answer. We couldn't leave the kid there alone, and we certainly couldn't take him with us on the trip, so we decided to call the police. We put the boy in the car to shield him from the scorching sun and made the call, reporting the entitled mother for abandoning her child. The police said they'd send an officer in about 15 to 20 minutes. We returned to our cars to keep an eye out for the police. When we got back, we found the entitled boy pulling my 4-year-old daughter's hair. The reason? The kids had some snacks in the cooler, and they didn't want to share with him. What followed as we rushed over to the scene was 10 boys pulling the entitled boy away from my daughter and a full-on scuffle breaking out. These kids had 2 years' worth of pent-up frustration with this boy, so it wasn't surprising. The entitled kid ended up bleeding and crying, lamenting that we were all mean and demanding food from us. He was cursing and hitting things, repeatedly shouting, "I want to go on the trip. I want to go on the trip now." He kept parroting this over and over, and in a fit of frustration, I yelled at him to shut up, which only made him cry even more. I admit, it probably wasn't my finest moment, but this was one of the few times I genuinely loathed a child in my life. The police arrived soon after, and we explained the whole situation to them. The mother was subsequently charged with child neglect. When she saw that our kids had given her son a beating, she even tried to press charges for assault against our kids, but that was quickly dropped as it was clear they had acted in self-defense. Edit. Many people are saying that I condone what happened to entitled boy. I don't. People say that I should have extended compassion. But what would you do if your daughter was crying and being harassed? Also, I was in a distance where they were somewhat far away, so me and the other parents couldn't break up the fight immediately. How the fight started is the boy wanted a snack from the cooler. If he had asked nicely the kids, or I would have likely given him something. There is a difference between being firm and heartless, while allowing someone to treat you horribly and get away with it. Story 5. I work at a clothing store on the sales floor, where my primary job is to assist customers in finding what they need while also folding, organizing, and storing clothes. During one of my shifts, I noticed a table that was completely overloaded with clothes. The piles were so tall that it was almost overwhelming. I decided to tackle that table first. As I was working on organizing the table, I noticed an empty shelf underneath it. These shelves are typically used to store excess stock, so I plan to organize the clothes into neat piles and store the extras on the shelf below. According to the store guidelines, each pile only needs 2 or 3 items of each size, sorted from largest at the bottom to smallest at the top. Additionally, there's an unspoken rule that if a pile looks too small, you can add more items until it reaches the bottom of the price sign. Following these guidelines, I made neat piles and stored the remaining items on the shelf underneath. While I was storing the extra clothes, one of the managers walked by and asked what I was doing. I explained my approach to him, but he wasn't happy with it. He instructed me to place all the clothes back on the table instead of using the shelf. I tried to explain why this wasn't a good idea, pointing out that tall piles would make it harder for customers to find their size and would increase the chances of creating a mess. However, he didn't care and insisted that I stack everything on the table, so I followed his instructions and stacked the clothes as he wanted. The piles ended up incredibly tall, some even reached my chest, and I'm 6'2". But since that's what the manager wanted, I completed the task and moved on to other responsibilities. For context, our store has a baby and toddler section, so it's common for parents to bring their little ones while shopping. After I had finished with the table, a father was standing next to it, waiting for his wife. He had his baby on his shoulder, possibly trying to burp or soothe the child. As the father gently swayed from side to side, he accidentally bumped into the side of the table. The movement caused some of the tall piles to topple over, sending clothes onto the floor behind him. As if it was a cruel twist of fate, just as the father turned around to check what had happened, the baby vomited. The motion of the father turning caused the mess to spread, covering several shirts that had fallen to the floor. Unfortunately, the shirts were no longer usable due to the mess, so they had to be discarded. There were easily 10 to 20 shirts on the floor, each priced at around $10, resulting in a loss of a couple of $100s for the store. The situation took a frustrating turn when the manager who had insisted on stacking the clothes tried to place the blame on me. Thankfully, I explained the situation to another manager, who saw reason and held the first manager accountable. In the end, that manager had to take responsibility for the damages.